I'll talk about why we built AWS Management Tools, what are some of the capabilities of these tools, how can it resolve some of the problems that you are facing when you manage resources at scale. I've got a couple of exciting launch announcements to make, which I'm sure a lot of you customers would find really valuable around Cloud Formation stack sets and AWS Config Dashboard. So I'm going to be diving deeper into those features throughout my presentation. And lastly, I'll wrap it up with a Q&A session. So let's get started. So as your business grows in size and complexity, your cloud computing needs change with it. Agility becomes a must. So you want to make sure that the management tools that you use not only support the agility, but also give you the visibility and the control that you need to manage your resources at scale. You need the capability to quickly provision resources across multiple accounts, across multiple regions at scale. You want to be supportive to your development organization as they adopt agile best practices. They want to roll out different products out of the door. So you want to give them the freedom to use self-service APIs and quickly provision resources. But at the same time, you want to maintain some control over the way they provision resources, as far as the configuration is concerned, are they using best practices, et cetera. So it becomes really important to gain the visibility into your cloud environment. Also, as you keep using the cloud, it's important to monitor and optimize your cloud. The optimization in this case would be things like identifying unused resources or underutilized resources. So from a cost management perspective, it really becomes beneficial to have that capability in your tools. So with these things in mind, we started developing AWS Management Tools, which is really a suite of services across different areas to help you manage your cloud. So whether you're someone who is just getting started migrating applications to the cloud, or if you're an experienced cloud user who's already having a hybrid cloud deployment, AWS Management Tools helps you get the visibility you need and the control you need to manage your cloud environment. At a high level, we've got tools that help you model and automate the provisioning process for deploying resources, tools that give you visibility, tools that make you respond to changes as they happen, optimization tools, and the capability to integrate with third-party tools. Many of those tools you might already be using in your data centers. So you want to make sure that we leverage the investments that you've already made. So let's talk about a couple of tools in the modeling and automation area. AWS Cloud Formation is a service that gives you an easy way to provision resources into your cloud in a very orderly and predictable fashion. Cloud Formation templates can be written either in JSON or YAML. And you can basically define the resources that you need to provision in the form of a template, along with the parameters and the configuration actions that you need. Cloud Formation will then take care of the rest and create a stack of those resources in your account, in your region. So you can manage your stack as a whole. If you want to update resources, delete resources, you can just update the stack template instead of going to each individual resource through their consoles. Here are some of the key benefits of Cloud Formation. As I mentioned, you can use it to provision resources into your infrastructure. The templates are easy to write, and you can use them as blueprints, something that can be easily shared with different teams in your organization. And you can even share it with your partners if you have a list of trusted partners that you work with, so that they can provision the resources in a standardized manner in their environment. So Cloud Formation, through its templates, helps enforce that standardization layer when it comes to provisioning a set of resources along with a specific set of configuration. Another key benefit of Cloud Formation is that it supports a wide range of AWS resources. Today, pretty much any resource in AWS can be provisioned using Cloud Formation, and we are continuously expanding that list as we add new services in AWS. So let's talk about a new feature launch. So up until now, if you wanted to create a stack across multiple accounts, across multiple regions, you had to go into the Cloud Formation console for that region, for that account, and create a stack. So imagine if you're a cloud administrator who is managing multiple accounts, like let's say 50 accounts spread across 4 different regions. If you ever wanted to provision the same stack across all of those accounts, you would have to maintain your own homegrown scripts, highly customized scripts, and you had to run those scripts to deploy those stacks in those accounts, which is quite error-prone and expensive. So bottom line is, it's really a pain in the neck if you are a cloud administrator managing multiple accounts, if you want to enforce that standardization. Well, not anymore. Very excited to announce a new feature in Cloud Formation called Cloud Formation Stack Sets. This is a feature that a lot of our customers have been waiting for, and it really simplifies the way you provision resources across accounts. So what are stack sets? So stack sets allow the creation of a stack across accounts and regions via a common template. You can add a set of accounts and regions into a stack set, and Cloud Formation takes care of provisioning that stack across those accounts and regions, and lets you move on to other things. Pretty exciting, isn't it? Here are some of the use cases where you would want to provision a same stack across multiple accounts. So for example, if you want to enable CloudTrail, or set up KMS keys, or even turn on config rules across accounts. If you want to standardize Amazon VPCs with peering connections, or set up common EC2 security ingress rules across accounts. A lot of our customers use the same stack across different accounts for business continuity and disaster recovery solutions. So for example, if you want to replicate S3 data buckets across regions, you could do that through Cloud Formation. Similarly, if you want to provision read replicas for your Amazon RDS instances. So before you start creating a stack set, there are a few prerequisites. So first thing you want to do is you want to determine what is your master account. So your master account is an administrative account where you create the stack set. This is where you define what are my target accounts, which are basically the accounts where you want to provision the stacks into. The third one is you want to know what are the roles that the master account should assume, basically to have the trust relationship between the target account and the master account. So establishing the roles and the trust relationship is a very important prerequisite, and that has to be done out of band. So how do you start using stack sets? The first thing is you want to select a template from a set of predefined templates that we provide, or you can use your own Cloud Formation template. You can define the set of accounts and the regions to provision the stacks into, and then define how you want the stacks to be provisioned across accounts and regions. So for example, if you want a stack to be provisioned in a certain order, so the certain regions, the regions have to be listed in order so that the provisioning happens in that sequence. Similarly, you can specify your failure tolerance. So for example, if I have 100 accounts, I want to make sure that if my provisioning fails for any reason for more than 10 accounts, I want to stop the provisioning across the rest of my 100 accounts. So the failure tolerance is an important setting that you can configure. And I'll walk through this in a demo in a couple of minutes. Some of the operations that you can perform on a stack set include creating and deleting a stack set. You can add or remove stacks into a stack set. You can update the stacks. So basically, you update the template, and then that updates the stack. And then you can cancel operations like add, update, or remove. So without further ado, let me get into a demo on stack sets. So I go to the Cloud Formation console, and I can start off by clicking on Create a Stack Set. So I've got a set of predefined templates here, like enabling CloudTrail or enabling config or certain config rules. You could also use your own template. But let me go ahead and select Enable AWS CloudTrail. So this is where I specify the things that are present inside the template. So I would name the stack set. Let's say I want to enable CloudTrail in my dev accounts. The rest of the stuff it's just picking it up from the template. I'll just keep the default values for now. And this is where I specify my accounts, my target accounts. So I've got a few options here. I could either type in the account numbers. I could upload a list of accounts through a CSV file. Or the third option is that I could use AWS organizations to specify the accounts. So for those of you who are not familiar with AWS organizations, it's a service where you can organize your accounts in a hierarchy by creating what's known as an organization unit. So let's say I can create an organization unit called my dev account, and then tie all of my dev accounts into my dev organization unit. So it gives me an easier way to holistically manage a set of accounts. So what I need to do here is I've already created an organization unit. So I'm going to just type in the organization unit ID in here. Okay. And now I'm going to specify the regions where I want the stack to be deployed. So let me select a couple of regions. We're available in all public regions, so all regions where Cloud Formation is currently supported. As I mentioned earlier, the order of these regions is important. So in this case, my stacks will start getting deployed in US East and then US West. Now this is where I specify the concurrency. So basically, if I want to deploy stacks in parallel, if I want to do it in a faster pace, I can specify the maximum concurrent accounts in here. So Cloud Formation stack sets will go ahead and deploy stacks in those many accounts in parallel. So let me put in a number here, 5 accounts. And also specify the failure tolerance. So this is the number of accounts for which the stack can fail before Cloud Formation stops the deployment in other regions. Right, I'll skip the tags part. So let's review what we have. So as you can see here, through my AWS Organizations integration, I was able to pull the accounts that were listed under that OU. So I've got about 5 accounts in there. Right there. I have the regions that I've specified, 2 regions. And so 5 accounts across 2 regions is basically 10 stacks. So I'm going to be provisioning 10 stacks through stack sets right now. Let's go ahead and create the stack set. Okay. So it says it's currently in the running status, which means the process is going on right now. So we'll keep track of the status. I can monitor the status of the individual stacks in this panel at the bottom. So let's wait till a few more seconds, and we should start seeing some information in there. I can view the template that I used for deploying my stack, the parameters that I used, any tags. Okay, so let's see if the status has changed. Okay. So I've started seeing some data in here. So it looks like, as I mentioned, the order of the regions is important. So US East 1 was the first region. So it has successfully deployed the stack in each of those accounts in US East. If it is successful, it says the status says current, which means it's current compared to the template that I specified. And if it is not yet started, the status is outdated compared to the template. So it will start in US West 2 in a minute or so. So I've got these unique stack names associated with each stack. And if you were to go to the Cloud Formation console in each of those accounts, in those regions, you should be able to see that stack name in there. So now it looks like I've got a stack name for US West 2. So let's wait for a few seconds. All right. So looks like it got successfully deployed in all 10 accounts. In all 5 accounts across 2 regions, so 10 stacks. You see the success message there, and all stacks are current as far as the template is concerned. So let me go now to the target accounts and see if actually CloudTrail got enabled in those accounts or not. So let me go to my first target account. Go to the CloudTrail console. Go to the trails. So I can see that 2 trails got created, and it is prefixed with stackset in there. So any resource that we create through stackset has that prefix, so that will tell you that it got created with stackset. At the same time, you can see the 2 regions for that trail. Now let's go to the rest of the target accounts. This is my second target account, and verify in CloudTrail. I can see the 2 trails listed here with stackset. Now let's go to the third account. Go to the trails, and I see the 2 trails in here. Let's go to the fourth one. I can see the trails listed here as well. And now let's go to the last target account. And I see the trails listed here as well. Okay. So what we saw was it just took me a few minutes to provision 10 stacks across 5 accounts and 2 regions. But imagine if you were doing that individually for each account. So using stack sets, you can really save a lot of time and reduce your administrative burden. Here's a testimonial from one of our partners and customers who was involved in the beta program. So Artur Sulman, the CEO of Flux7, says that stack sets presents the opportunity for significant time savings while increasing adherence to golden configuration across multiple accounts. So I'm sure a lot of you would find this service really useful. So I encourage you to go ahead and start using stack sets. It is available in all commercial regions as of yesterday. All right. So we saw how AWS Management Tools, such as Cloud Formation and stack sets, help you in modeling your cloud environment and provisioning resources. Now let's see how AWS Management Tools help you gain visibility into your cloud environment. AWS Config is a service that automatically discovers resources in your account. It captures their configuration and evaluates those configurations using rules that you create. The rules are defined based on best practices, industry best practices, as well as your own internal guidelines that you can create. Two of the key benefits of AWS Config are continuous monitoring and continuous assessment. Now, I would like to emphasize the word continuous in here. The word continuous, why is continuous capability important in the cloud? Well, in the cloud, resources are dynamic in nature. You could see EC2 instances spinning up and down within a matter of minutes, especially if you're using auto-scaling mechanisms. So in this scenario, it becomes really important to know that if any new resources come up in your cloud environment, even if they are up for a few minutes, they have the correct baseline security configuration in place so that they don't become the weak link and allow any intruder to get into your network. So you want to make sure that you're continuously monitoring the configuration of your resources and comparing that with your baseline, with your best practices, with your desired configuration, and you want to get alerted if it falls out of compliance. So that's where this whole service of AWS Config comes in. Using AWS Config, you can continuously record changes to your resource configuration, and then you can create config rules, which are basically best practice checks that can run on that configuration, and it would tell you if your resource complies with that rule or not. So let's see some more details in here. So in order to get started for best practice checks, we offer a number of rules out of the box. We call them manage rules, which are essentially pre-built rules that you can use in your environment. A lot of these rules are built on AWS best practices that we use ourselves internally, as well as CIS benchmarks or compliance regulatory frameworks like PCI or HIPAA. So let's say if you're someone who works in a highly regulated industry like healthcare or financial services, you may require that you need to encrypt the customer's data at rest. So using one of our pre-built or managed rules, you can quickly identify all of your EC2 storage volumes that are not encrypted, and then you can take corrective action. Another example would be if you want to make sure that all of your EC2 instances are built on top of an Amazon machine image, which is hardened by you or which is on your approved list, then you can run one of our managed rules, which will flag the resources which are not using an AMI on your approved list. So essentially, you would find rogue EC2 systems that aren't built on top of an approved AMI. You can take corrective action and then create a new instance on an approved AMI. A very popular rule that a lot of our customers are using config for is to identify blacklisted applications on your EC2 servers. So for example, if you want to find out that if there are any software packages on your EC2 which are vulnerable, which are really old versions maybe, so you want to identify those EC2 servers, and using our pre-built rules, you could blacklist certain software packages, certain versions. For example, I want to find out all EC2 instances that are using a really old version of PHP. So you could create that rule. It's already in there. It's a managed rule. Just apply it to your account. And then we will start looking for EC2 instances that have that outdated version of software and alert you if it is non-compliant. Besides our managed rules or pre-built rules, we do offer the capability to create your own rule using custom rules. So this is where you can essentially codify any internal guidelines or policies that you have in place specific to your business. So using custom rules, it uses AWS Lambda in the backend. You can codify your policy in AWS Lambda and tie it to the config rule, and we will run that rule on a continuous basis, either on configuration changes or on a periodic basis. So it's really powerful, and it helps in the continuous assessment use cases. Right. Here's a customer testimonial from one of our customers, Flux7, who uses config rule. So config rules are your laws for AWS accounts and can be used to maintain compliance and monitor activity of what the dev teams do in their accounts and catch what is against corporate or standard compliance. So many times, like as I mentioned earlier, as your business grows, you hire new people, there is a learning curve. There are a lot of services in AWS, and the developers have to come to speed with different services and make sure that they are using best practices. But many times that may not happen. So at least you have this checks and balance in place where we can identify misconfigurations and alert you if something needs to be fixed. So I'm very excited to announce a new feature in AWS Config that I'm sure a lot of you customers would find useful. It's called the AWS Config Dashboard. So this dashboard summarizes your resources in your account, as well as their compliance state with AWS Config Rules. You can see your resource inventory, and it is broken down by resource type. So you know exactly how many resources exist in your account. You can also see the config rule compliance status, meaning you can find the non-compliant rules in your account, as well as the non-compliant resources in your account. You get the top 5 non-compliant rules, which basically tell you what are the rules and the resources that you need to pay attention. So So use this as a starting point, and then you can drill deeper into what you want to investigate. So I'll get into more details in the demo. Okay, so I'll go to the config console. So as you can see, this is my landing page. I see this dashboard with a list of all my resources. As I mentioned, config rules are your best practice checks. So assuming you have your internal policies defined, you can see a list of your top 5 rules that are basically non-compliant. So let me go into a particular resource type in here. Let's say let's choose EC2 security group. So once I click on that, I can get a list of all security groups in my account in that particular region, and I can view its compliance state with respect to config rules. So let me choose a particular security group in here to see what details we capture. So right at the top, we see a timeline of all configuration changes that occurred on that security group. So I can navigate through different time in the timelines, and I can view the configuration information at that particular point in time. So for example, I can see what is the ARN, the Amazon resource name, the availability zone, what are the tags associated with my resource, and what are some of the resource-specific properties associated with that. I can also look at relationships. So this basically tells you how that resource is related to other resource types in your account. So in this case, my EC2 security group is related to an EC2 instance, an EC2 network interface, and a VPC. This information is valuable because if you're following change management processes where, let's say, you're in a highly regulated industry of financial services, and if somebody wants to modify a security group ingress rule, you want to make sure that it goes through some reviews before someone actually modifies the rule. So when a change administrator comes to this dashboard, they can look at, okay, how is that security group related to other resources, like other EC2 instances? So it gives me the blast radius, if you will, if that change were to go wrong. So this is kind of an impact assessment for change management, and that's one of the popular use cases for relationships. I can also see what are the configuration changes that occurred on this security group. So as you can see here, previously, the security group only had a particular IP address in its ingress rule. But then someone modified that to open it up to the internet, as highlighted here. Certainly something that would cause an alarm for security administrators, and they want to know if a particular security group is opened up to the internet. I can also see through our CloudTrail integration who initiated that change. So CloudTrail events, basically it will tell you what are the CloudTrail events at that particular point in time when we recorded the configuration change. So it gives you a good idea of not only who made the change, but what was the change. So as I mentioned in the timeline, you can view the configuration at any point in time. So you can select that time and get the results. All of this information can be accessed programmatically as well. So here is the JSON for the configuration item that we capture. And this has all the details about the configuration of the resource, the relationships of that resource, and what were the changes that happened to that resource. Okay. Let's go back to the dashboard. So as I mentioned earlier, we saw a security group, how that got modified. And if you're a security administrator managing multiple EC2 instances, multiple security groups, you would want to know that are there any other security group policies that fit in the same bucket. So basically, I want to find out if there are any more wide open security groups in my account. So for that purpose, we already have a managed rule called restricted SSH, as outlined there. And so it has already identified 10 non-compliant resources. So let me dig into that a little bit. So when I click on it through the dashboard, I come to this detailed view where I get a list of all my security groups that are violating that rule. And so these are the rules that I need to fix. I can also view the rules that are compliant with that rule. And so if I need to fix this security group, I can click on the Manage Resource icon in there, and that takes me directly to the EC2 security group console. So I can go there, check the inbound rules. As you can see, port 22 is allowed through anyone on the internet. So let me go ahead and restrict that to just my IP address. And let's go back to the config dashboard. So as you can see now, restricted SSH shows me 9 non-compliant resources. That means it detected that one resource just went compliant. So let's click on it and verify just to be sure. I think the resource ended in D76. Yeah, so it shows as compliant now. So we immediately detected that change automatically. And that's the power of continuous monitoring and continuous assessment. If I click on the timeline for that resource, let's go down to the configuration changes section and see if that change got captured. So as you can see here, it was previously wide open, and I restricted that. So AWS Config was immediately able to detect and record that change. You can also see the CloudTrail event associated with that. Okay, let's go back to the dashboard now. So let me now show you how to create rules. So on the rules dashboard, you can add a rule. We've got about 36 managed rules out of the box. So you can choose any one of these rules and assign it or apply it to your resources. But let me go ahead and add a new rule. So this is a rule for encrypted volumes. So basically, it identifies EBS volumes that are not encrypted. So I'll just go ahead and select the trigger type. So I can either choose to run this rule every time the configuration change happens on the EC2 volume, or I could run this rule on a periodic basis. So if you want to detect changes as soon as changes happen, it's recommended to keep it on configuration changes. So let's go ahead. That's selected by default. And let me just go ahead and save this. So I just added this new rule, and it's currently evaluating all of your volumes in your account in that region. So let's wait for a few seconds till the compliant results come back. So as you can see, it has identified 4 non-compliant resources. Let's click on it. And these are the volumes that need my attention, essentially. So really powerful mechanism to quickly analyze your resource configuration and flag the ones that are non-compliant with your policies. Let's go ahead and let me show you how you create a custom rule. So a custom rule is something where you can codify your own internal policies. So at the heart of this is an AWS Lambda function that you would create in a language of your choice and essentially associate that with this rule. The rest of the settings are pretty similar, like the trigger type, whether you wanted periodic or configuration changes, and then you can hit save. And config would then take care of running this rule on your behalf. So there are really no limits on what you can codify as far as your policies are concerned. A lot of our customers are using custom config rules for HIPAA compliance, PCI compliance, CIS benchmarks, NIST 800 rules. So you can use your own language, create Lambda functions, and just start the continuous assessment process. Very simple, but yet very powerful. All right. Okay. So let me skip this part. So we saw about a tool that gives you visibility into your cloud environment. Now let's talk about how you can respond to changes using another AWS management tool called Amazon CloudWatch. So CloudWatch, it's a service that lets you proactively monitor your metrics, as well as collect and monitor log information, set alarms, and automatically react to any changes to your resources. Using CloudWatch, you can monitor EC2 metrics such as CPU utilization or disk usage. You can monitor other resource types like DynamoDB tables or Amazon Elastic MapReduce job flows. You can submit your own metrics, your custom metrics that are generated by your applications, and then have them monitored through CloudWatch. You can also set alarms on any of your metrics. So basically, if it crosses a certain threshold, you get immediately alerted, and you can take corrective action. One of the other tools that our customers use for optimization is the AWS Trusted Advisor. So the Trusted Advisor is a service that gives you a clear understanding of your spend. It will highlight the unused or underutilized resources in your account, and then you can basically optimize your cloud environment. This is one of the tools that I mentioned in the optimization part of management tools. So really handy tool, and a lot of customers have benefited in savings, cost savings. Let's now talk about our integration story. So with AWS Management Tools, we integrate with a number of third-party tools, such as ServiceNow and BMC Remedy for lifecycle management, Splunk and Sumo Logic for log aggregation, Chef for configuration management using Chef recipes. So basically, you have this integration, and that helps you retain your investments in your existing tools, but at the same time, use the AWS Management Tools for other purposes. So to summarize, AWS Management Tools provides you with the capabilities that you need to manage and control your cloud environment across any phase in your cloud adoption journey. You can provide the guardrails that you need in your account. There is no software to install. There is no licensing fees. You're just able to use the tools on a pay-as-you-go basis, and you're able to securely and programmatically consume our services. Here's a customer reference. One of our customers, Flux7, uses the suite of services in AWS Management Tools as part of their own playbook for AWS management. They use Cloud Formation for provisioning, and they find it very beneficial in creating the consistency or the standardization across the multiple accounts that they use. They use AWS Config and Config Rules for continuous monitoring, continuous recording, and so they are able to give the agility that their developers need, while at the same time have control over the configuration of the resources that they spin up. Okay, it's very easy to get started with AWS Management Tools. You can go to our console, and they are located under the Management Tools section, as highlighted there. So I really encourage you all to get started and use the tools highlighted here. With that, we wrap up the presentation. We can open up for Q&A. Thank you. Yep. They're not free to use. It's pay as you go. Some of those tools are free, like, for example, CloudTrail. You can get the first trail for free, but subsequent trail you pay. So there are various pricing models that we have for each of those tools. Okay, come.
Which products integrate with ServiceNow?
Sorry, what was that?
Which products integrate with, say, ServiceNow?
AWS Config integrates with ServiceNow. So basically, they can subscribe to our SNS topic, and they can get a stream of all changes that occur on resources and import that into their CMDB. Yep.
Does it create tickets if there are violations, things like that?
AWS Config does not create tickets, but ServiceNow could create tickets based on the information that it imports from config. Yeah. Yep. Yep. How long does it take to detect?
How long does it rinse the like how far back?
Today we retain it. We don't have any. We don't purge any data as of yet. So we do have the information since the resource got created. Yeah. Any other questions? Yep. Integrate CloudWatch alerts with Jira. Yeah. Sure. We don't have an out-of-the-box integration with Jira, but I'm sure there might be like a partner who could do that, or maybe you can develop your integration logic using Lambda if those Jira APIs are publicly accessible. Yeah. But that's a good feature feedback that I can take for the team. So thank you.
Could you show us
last slide. I think they've turned it off, so yeah. The slides would be available on SlideShare after, I think, a couple of days. So it's publicly accessible, the SlideShare. You should be able to get that if you've registered. So I think so, yeah, but I can double check on that. So.